Welcome back to our channel. Today we're bringing you the powerful and emotional journey of a man who went from a poor boy in a small village to the founder of one of the most luxurious brands in the world, Louis Vuitton. You see the LV logo everywhere, on handbags, shoes, luggage. But do you know the man behind it? The pain, the struggle, the journey? This is not just a story of fashion. This is a story of hard work, belief, and never giving up, even when life is extremely unfair. So sit back, relax, and let's begin the amazing story of Louis Vuitton, Chapter 1, A Village Boy with Big Dreams. The story begins in the year 1821 in a quiet village called Angers, located in eastern France. This village was surrounded by forests and farms. There were no cars, no electricity, and people lived a very simple life. In this village, a baby named Louis Vuitton was born into a very poor family. His father was a farmer and his mother was a hat maker. Life was not easy. They lived in a small wooden house with almost no money. From a very young age, Louis saw the reality of poverty. He didn't have toys to play with or even good shoes to wear. But what he had was curiosity. He was always interested in how things were made, how wood was cut, how hats were shaped, how boxes were built. He watched his mother design and stitch hats. It fascinated him. But sadly, when Louis was just 10 years old, his mother passed away. This broke his heart. Soon after, his father also died. At only 13 years old, Louis was left alone in the world. Most kids would feel lost, but not Louis. Instead of giving up, he made a very bold decision. He wanted to go to Paris, the capital city, and find a better life. He wanted to learn, to work, and to become someone important. But Louis had no money, no food, and no family in Paris. Still, he began the journey, on foot. Yes, you heard it right. Louis walked over 400 kilometers through forests, roads, and farms, all the way from Angers to Paris. He walked for days, for weeks, and even months. He slept in barns, worked for food, and helped strangers along the way just to survive. But he never complained. He believed in one thing. One day, my name will be known in Paris. It was a journey of pain, hope, and determination. And after nearly 2 years of struggle, young Louis finally reached the beautiful and busy streets of Paris. But reaching Paris was just the beginning. Chapter 2. The Young Apprentice in the City of Lights. When Louis arrived in Paris, he was around 16 years old. He had no money, no home, and no friends. He slept in small workshops or on the streets, but he kept searching for work. Finally, he found a job with a man named Monsieur Maréchal, a master box maker and packer. At that time, traveling was a big thing among the rich. And when they traveled, they needed beautiful and strong trunks to carry their clothes and items. Louis started as a helper. His job was simple: cut, clean, carry, and observe. But he watched carefully. He studied every detail: how to cut leather, how to shape wood, how to pack perfectly. And in just a few months, Louis became very skilled. He was quick, careful, and creative. Customers began to notice his work. They started asking, "Where's that young boy? I want him to pack my things." His name began to spread. And then came the biggest moment of his life. One day, the Empress of France, Eugénie de Montijo, wife of Emperor Napoleon III, heard about this young boy's talent. She called him personally and asked him to create custom boxes for her royal travel. Can you imagine? A poor village boy, who once had nothing, was now working for royalty. From that day on, Louis's reputation became royal. He was no longer just a helper. He was a master craftsman. His hands created art, and his name was becoming famous in elite circles. But Louis wasn't satisfied with just working for others. He had a dream: to create his own brand, to build his own empire. And he was just getting started. Chapter 3. A Dream is Born, the first Louis Vuitton workshop. By now, Louis Vuitton had already gained fame among the rich and powerful in Paris. His work was respected. His skills were unmatched. People said, "If you want the best travel trunk, go to Louis." But Louis was still an employee. He was creating for others, not for himself. And deep in his heart, he knew something very clearly. If I want to leave a mark on the world, I must create something of my own. So, in the year 1854, with the little money he had saved, Louis opened his first workshop. It was a small store at 4 Rue Neuve des Capucines in the heart of Paris. On the sign outside, he proudly wrote, "Louis Vuitton, packager to the Empress of France." This was not just a line. This was his brand's identity. He wanted people to know that his work had been trusted by royalty, and now he was ready to bring the same quality to everyone. But Louis didn't want to make ordinary trunks. He wanted to revolutionize the way people travel. At that time, trunks were designed with rounded tops. Why? Because rainwater would slide off. But these trunks were very hard to stack. You couldn't place one on top of another. Louis saw an opportunity. He asked himself, what if I create a flat-top trunk? Easy to stack, easy to store, and still beautiful and strong. And so he did. In 1858, he introduced the world's first flat-top trunk made from lightweight, waterproof canvas. It was simple, elegant, and brilliant. People were amazed. This was something new, something useful, and something that no one else had thought of. Orders began to flood in. Wealthy travelers, businessmen, and even explorers wanted Louis's trunks. But Louis didn't stop at just trunks. He focused on perfection, making sure every detail was precise. The stitching, the lining, the leather corners, the locks, everything had to be perfect. He also trained young craftsmen in his workshop, teaching them his way of working, with patience, love, and care. Each trunk took many hours, even days, to make. But for Louis, it was never about speed. It was always about quality. Louis's workshop slowly became famous not just in Paris, but all over Europe. People who traveled to France would make it a point to visit his store. Louis Vuitton was no longer just a name. It was becoming a symbol of class, of beauty, and of innovation. But success didn't come without challenges. Many competitors tried to copy his style. Some even made fake trunks using his name. Louis didn't fight back with anger. Instead, he fought back with better design and more creativity. And during all this, Louis had one more goal in mind, something even greater than building trunks. He wanted to build a legacy. Chapter 4. The Fire, the Fight, and the Foundation of a Legacy. By the 1860s, Louis Vuitton's name had become known among the elite of Europe. His workshop was thriving, and his flat-top trunks were being used by the world's richest travelers. It seemed like Louis had finally built the life he dreamed of. But life, just like travel, has unexpected storms. In 1870, war broke out, the Franco-Prussian War. France was in chaos. Paris was under attack. People were fleeing the city. Businesses were closing down. Factories were destroyed. Shops were looted. It was one of the darkest periods in French history. And Louis Vuitton's workshop burned to the ground. Everything he had built with love and hard work, gone. His tools, his trunks, his raw materials, his customer records. Everything turned to ashes. Most people would give up at this point. After all, Louis was now over 50 years old. He had no workshop, no income, no place to restart. But Louis was not like most people. He looked at the ruins and said something powerful. "If I've done it once, I can do it again. Only this time, I will build it even better." When the war ended, Louis didn't rest. Instead of mourning the loss, he started looking for a new location, a place where he could start again. And he found one. A modest workshop at 1 Rue Scribe, near a luxury hotel that attracted foreign visitors. A smart move. But Louis didn't just reopen his shop. He reinvented his entire brand. This time, he designed a new line of trunks using a special gray canvas called Trianon. This canvas was not only stylish and water-resistant, but also lightweight and strong. It was fresh. It was modern. It was different. But that's not all. To fight against the growing market of fake copies, Louis also introduced custom monograms and patterns that made each trunk unique and hard to duplicate. People loved it. Once again, orders started coming in from rich families, world travelers, and even royal courts. And during this period, something else important happened. Louis's son, Georges Vuitton, joined the business. Georges wasn't just a helper, he had his own ideas. He admired his father, but he also wanted to take the brand to the next level. Louis, being a wise man, started teaching Georges everything, from how to select the right leather to how to deal with customers and how to think like an innovator. Together, they began dreaming bigger. "We're not just selling trunks," Louis told Georges. "We're selling the dream of travel, the taste of elegance, and the spirit of adventure." This new energy, the partnership between father and son, made the Louis Vuitton brand stronger than ever. And even though the war had nearly destroyed him, Louis came back not just as a craftsman, but as a true entrepreneur. He had gone from a small-town boy with no money to a respected name in all of Europe, to a man who turned ashes into a legacy. But the journey was far from over, because while Louis was building a brand, Georges was getting ready to take it beyond borders, to the entire world. Chapter 5. The global dream begins. Georges Vuitton's vision. After rebuilding the brand from ashes, Louis Vuitton had found peace in the growth of his business and the presence of his son, Georges Vuitton, by his side. But as Louis was growing older, a new chapter of the story was about to begin. A chapter driven by Georges, who had inherited not only his father's skills, but also his deep ambition. Georges was not just interested in making beautiful trunks. He wanted to transform the brand into something much bigger. He had one big dream in his heart: let the whole world know the name Louis Vuitton. While Louis focused on quality and craftsmanship, Georges focused on strategy, marketing, and expansion. He believed that luxury was not just about the product, it was about the story behind it, the feeling it gave people, and the image it created. And so, Georges started making bold moves. One of his first innovations was something genius for its time: the unpickable lock. Back then, travel theft was common. Many rich travelers worried about the safety of their valuables. Georges decided to solve this problem by designing a special lock system that couldn't be picked by thieves. In fact, he was so confident in his design that he challenged famous escape artists to try and open it, and they failed. This not only brought trust to the brand, but it also brought attention. Louis Vuitton was now seen not only as elegant, but also smart, safe, strong. Georges also had a talent for branding. He knew that if the company wanted to stand out, it needed a signature design that the world would recognize instantly. So in 1896, just 4 years after his father's passing, Georges launched something that would change fashion forever: the Louis Vuitton monogram canvas. It was decorated with repeating patterns, the LV initials, flowers and stars, inspired by Japanese and Oriental designs. This was not just decoration. It was a bold move to fight against fake products and give the brand its own identity. The monogram became iconic. People didn't just want trunks anymore. They wanted the symbol of Louis Vuitton. They wanted to be seen with it. It became a status symbol. And Georges didn't stop there. He began opening stores in international cities: London, New York, Bombay, Alexandria, Buenos Aires. Louis Vuitton was no longer just a French company. It had become a global brand. He also expanded the product line, from travel trunks to handbags, luggage sets, and accessories, all made with the same level of quality and elegance. Each item was not just a product. It was a piece of history, a reflection of both Louis's craftsmanship and Georges' vision. Customers who used Louis Vuitton didn't just carry bags, they carried a story, a legacy, a dream. And this dream was now traveling across oceans, mountains, and continents. What's beautiful is that Georges never forgot where it all began. With a poor young boy walking 292 miles to find work, with a flat-top trunk, with fire and failure, with courage and belief. He honored his father's name in every decision he made. And under Georges' leadership, Louis Vuitton didn't just become a famous brand, it became a world leader in luxury travel fashion. But as the brand was now known all over the world, a new challenge was about to arise: the modern era of fashion. And it would take even more creativity, innovation, and bold decisions to keep the dream alive. Chapter 6: Surviving the Changing Times, From Tradition to Innovation. As the world stepped into the 20th century, everything started changing. Faster transportation, new technologies, world wars, and completely new fashion ideas. Many traditional companies struggled to keep up with the speed of this change. But Louis Vuitton? It adapted, evolved, and continued to rise. After the visionary Georges Vuitton passed away in 1936, leadership of the company moved into the hands of his son, Gaston Louis Vuitton. Gaston was not just continuing a family business. He was now the third generation responsible for guarding a legend, and the world he inherited was no longer the same. The demand for luxury trunks was falling. Why? Because people no longer traveled with large steamer trunks. Airplanes had taken over ships, and travel had become lighter and faster. Gaston realized that to survive, Louis Vuitton had to move beyond trunks. It had to become a true fashion brand, not just a travel accessory company. So, he took bold steps. He started designing lightweight, elegant handbags and purses that could be used in everyday life. These bags weren't just practical, they were stylish, classy, and became instant symbols of luxury and taste. Gaston also understood the power of storytelling. He preserved hundreds of personal letters, designs, sketches, and old client records. He built an archive to show the deep history of the brand, because he believed a brand without memory is a brand without meaning. Under his leadership, Louis Vuitton became more than a product. It became a lifestyle. Owning a Louis Vuitton item was like being part of a private club, exclusive, elegant, and powerful. But then came a true test: World War II. During the war, many luxury businesses closed down or disappeared. Travel stopped, factories shut down, and cities were destroyed. But Louis Vuitton found a way to survive. Gaston and his team reduced operations but continued creating products. After the war, when life returned to normal, the brand was ready to rise again. In the post-war era, the economy was booming. People had money. They wanted beauty, fashion, and style, and Louis Vuitton was ready to give it to them. By the 1950s, Louis Vuitton started experimenting with new product lines like wallets, accessories, and custom bags for modern women. The company even introduced stackable suitcases that matched the size of airplane cabins, something completely new at that time. But something else happened during this period: counterfeit products. As Louis Vuitton became more popular, fake versions began to appear everywhere. Gaston and the future management teams had to take strong legal steps to protect the brand's reputation. That's when the importance of the LV monogram became even clearer. It was a sign of authenticity, pride, and heritage. Then came the 1980s, a turning point in the brand's history. Louis Vuitton, still a family-run business, was now competing with modern fashion houses, luxury brands, and new designers. The world was watching fashion shows, reading fashion magazines, and shopping with a new kind of excitement. It was time for Louis Vuitton to reinvent itself again. So in 1987, a powerful merger happened. Louis Vuitton joined with Moet & Chandon and Hennessy, two giant names in champagne and cognac. This was the birth of a new luxury empire, LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. With this merger, Louis Vuitton no longer belonged to a single family. It became part of the largest luxury goods company in the world. This moment marked the beginning of the modern era of Louis Vuitton. They started hiring top designers, opening flagship stores in global cities, and entering new product categories like fashion, watches, jewelry, and shoes. The brand began walking the runway and appearing in films, TV shows, and celebrity wardrobes. Louis Vuitton was no longer just a product. It was a symbol of prestige, style, and timeless success. But even with all this change, one thing never changed. The heart of Louis Vuitton was still about one thing: excellence. Every bag, every detail, every design had to meet the highest standard. The brand had traveled far from its beginnings in a small Parisian workshop, but the spirit of Louis, Georges, and Gaston still lived in every creation. As Louis Vuitton stepped into the 21st century, it was stronger than ever. But now came the challenge of staying relevant in a digital world with young audiences, fast fashion, and new competition. Would the old name still shine in the modern age? That's what the final chapter will uncover. Chapter 7. A Legacy That Lives On: The Modern Rise of Louis Vuitton. As Louis Vuitton entered the 21st century, it faced a completely transformed world. The internet was booming, social media was rising, trends were changing faster than ever. New generations were no longer loyal to brands. They wanted experiences, values, and authenticity. For many old luxury brands, this was a dangerous time. They struggled to connect with young people. They were seen as outdated, slow, and too traditional. But Louis Vuitton? It refused to become irrelevant. Instead of resisting the new world, it embraced it, boldly and beautifully. In the early 2000s, Louis Vuitton took a daring step. It started hiring world-famous fashion designers and creative minds who could breathe new life into the brand while respecting its history. One of the biggest turning points came when Marc Jacobs was appointed as the brand's artistic director. Under his leadership, Louis Vuitton entered the fashion runway world for the first time. Until then, Louis Vuitton was known mostly for bags and travel accessories. But Marc Jacobs made Louis Vuitton a name in high fashion. He collaborated with modern artists like Steven Sprouse and Takashi Murakami, mixing art with fashion, tradition with innovation. Suddenly, Louis Vuitton bags had bold colors, graffiti, and pop art designs. Some people were shocked. Others were thrilled. But one thing was clear. Louis Vuitton was now part of the fashion future, not just the past. The brand also began opening flagship stores in major cities like New York, Tokyo, London, and Dubai. These weren't just stores, they were architectural masterpieces designed to give visitors an unforgettable experience. Every store told a story. Every design reflected history and imagination. Then came the digital revolution. Instagram, YouTube, online shopping, influencer marketing. This new era demanded more than luxury. It demanded relevance. Once again, Louis Vuitton adapted. It began working with celebrities, athletes, and influencers who spoke to younger audiences. Big names like Angelina Jolie, BTS, Virgil Abloh, Emma Stone, and Naomi Osaka became faces of the brand. In 2018, something historic happened. Virgil Abloh, a visionary designer and founder of Off-White, became the first black artistic director of menswear for Louis Vuitton. His appointment wasn't just about fashion, it was about inclusion, innovation, and inspiration. Virgil's designs brought streetwear to the runway, making Louis Vuitton cool and relevant to a whole new generation. Louis Vuitton also began telling deeper stories through its campaigns, celebrating culture, travel, dreams, and human emotion. It wasn't just selling products, it was sharing a philosophy. But behind all this style and glamour was a rock-solid business strategy. Louis Vuitton remained one of the most valuable luxury brands in the world. It continued to control its production, own its workshops, and train artisans, ensuring that every piece remained a symbol of craftsmanship and quality. Unlike many brands that mass-produce in factories, Louis Vuitton still takes pride in handmade excellence. Each bag is carefully stitched, each material carefully chosen, each product inspected for perfection. That's why their bags don't go on sale. That's why people wait in lines to own one. That's why even second-hand Louis Vuitton products are valuable. It's not just about fashion, it's about identity. Today, Louis Vuitton is part of the LVMH group, led by Bernard Arnault, one of the richest people in the world. Under his leadership, the brand has expanded into perfumes, watches, jewelry, and even luxury furniture. It has sponsored events like the America's Cup, collaborated with the NBA, and supported young designers through the LVMH Prize. It even designed custom bags for tech gadgets like iPhones and headphones, showing that even in a digital world, Louis Vuitton is here to stay. In a time when trends come and go overnight, Louis Vuitton has remained timeless. From a poor 16-year-old boy walking through forests to find a job, to a global brand recognized by billions, Louis Vuitton's story is not just about bags or business. It's about vision, values, and victory. It's proof that a strong foundation, bold decisions, and a passion for excellence can build something that lasts for centuries. Today, Louis Vuitton is more than a brand. It's a legend, and legends never go out of style. If you enjoyed this story and want more inspiring journeys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your journey to better English starts here.